Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the Tuesday, June 4th meeting of the City Council for the City of Cannon Falls to order. Can I get roll call, please?
Council members Bringold. Here. Duncan.
Here.
Gesme.
Here.
Lundell.
Here.
Mattson.
Here.
Montgomery.
Here.
And Mayor Altoff.
Here. You stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you've got the agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Bill and a second by Morris to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, consent agenda. Consent agenda items may be adopted under one motion as presented, or may be removed for discussion and resolution as council business. For you at home and in the audience, I'll read the consent agenda. Item A, just and correct claims for the accounting period ending May 29th, 2019. Item B, minute meetings for the May 21st, 2019 council meeting. Item C, approve employment agreement for the farmers market managers. D, approve agreement modification for zoning services. E, approve alley signage. And item F, approve new members to the reserve program and accept the resignation from a member. Is there anything the council wants to bring down? Hearing none, I'd accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. I'll second.
Who approves?
Steve. And then
Steve, and a second by Bill to approve the consent agenda. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, council business. None. We'll move right to reports. The first is council committee commission. Dave?
I did attend the Joint Powers Trail Board. I don't know if there's any report, any update, anything that took place there.
Not anything huge, except we talked quite a bit about signage and about upcoming grants that they're attempting to get. Bruce is doing a lot of good work on grants.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed.
And also the calendar of redoing the bridges starting October of this
Yes,
year, and the possibility that if the trail were to be shut down here, if we stop it at Cannon, or if we leave it open and then people, as soon as they hit that first bridge at the Anderson Lookout, that would be where they'd have to stop and turn around. But nothing was finalized on that. But
Right. Yeah. Kind of an exciting time.
Personnel committee? Anything?
Two of the items that the Personnel Committee talked about were on the consent agenda, which was the employment agreement for farmers market and for the modification for zoning services. In addition to that, we began talking with the committee about the upcoming budget conversation and schedule for 2020. And I think one of the questions that came out of the committee back to the balance of the four members of the council was, particularly the three newest council members, on how you might like to be involved with the conversations of the 2020 budget. We talked about workshop formats. We've talked about presentations at the city council. We've talked in the past about the personnel also serving as a finance committee and maybe starting to delve into maybe some of the specific duties themselves. But I think one of the questions that came out was, what about the other three here? If you've got some ideas on if you'd like some separate conversations with Linnell and I and others as we go forward, or if you're okay kind of just following along the normal process. That was one question we wanted to pose tonight to you three.
Well, I hate to, I personally would like a little more information. I wouldn't like to just be kind of taking along and then like taking people's time, asking mundane questions, not that there are any silly questions, but I'd like to have a little more in-depth. I don't know about the others that are new, but I would personally.
Are you talking more like some workshop involvement?
Possibly workshop or possibly just meeting with you and Linnell and getting some more in-depth.
We can certainly-
Because it's complex. This is
Right.
not, the homeowners association here we're dealing with. This is hard stuff, so.
That's fine, and we can certainly work with individuals
Okay.
on that, or if a couple of you want to come in, we can work on that too, but in particular the three, and the other four of you too, the same
Right.
offer extended to you, but it is complicated, it is time-consuming, and I know the committee, when we talked about it, was really interested in making sure that everybody got a chance to weigh in and learn some things along the way on their own if they wanted to.
Okay, okay,
So let us know on that.
all right.
We also talked about I wouldn't want to call it an earlier start because it really isn't, but we wanted to start putting together a schedule of activities and tasks between now and December when the budget has to be approved and the levy has to be finalized. So we discussed last week about a kickoff starting as soon as tomorrow. Well, we'll begin to work on some scheduling and some dates, factoring in now maybe some individual sessions with council members as we go forward. But I think there's a real interest, at least by the committee as we talked last week, to get going and get going quickly.
Yeah.
So we talked about that. We also talked about the goal setting and the rates and charges for water and sewer. Linnell's requested and received now a proposal from Elders and Associates to assist us. We're beginning to look at that. But we did also spend some time last week about what we're going to try to do to address the goal of the council to look at and address the concern for the water and sewer rates. So we chatted about that as well. Final thing, and I can let the committee members chime in too if I've missed something, but the final thing is we began conversations about setting some parameters on the budgets, quantifying some parameters on the budget. I think probably all of you have talked with me at one time or the other about what you're thinking, but it really would be helpful for us as staff if we can maybe get some initial parameters set on the budget itself, and that can be a percentage increase, it can be a specific dollar, it can be how you want us to address the levy. We can factor in other revenues, and it would really be helpful for us to begin to get some definition from the council in terms of parameters. It won't be final, it will be preliminary. There's plenty of opportunities along the way to make adjustments, but to at least set the table beginning, that would really be helpful. So we talked some about that. And the committee doesn't have a recommendation in that regard. They just wanted me to report to the rest of you that that's what we discussed. I don't know, Bill or John or Morris, if there's something else there or anything in addition that you wanted to bring up
Well,
at this
normally
point?
start budget talks in July, but I'd like to even have a work session in June sometime with the council together and get the ball rolling on that.
Yeah, I agree with
Seeing a
that.
lot of heads shaking.
There's
yes.
sometime in June we could meet, or after the
might have
next
the better.
council meeting too, or something.
Okay.
Meet early and often, really.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
get it going.
How about at the next council meeting, before or after?
A workshop after, or similar to our goal setting, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we're all already here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
I
here.
prefer after, but yeah,
I won't be at that meeting.
okay.
Well, good, we'll start with Linnell's salary.
Yeah, really, exactly. That'll be dartboard. Okay,
Well, we'll start working on a schedule and see if we can incorporate some
Okay.
meeting dates sooner rather than later. I think
Good.
that's the
Okay.
message here. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. Before we go to the staff, does any of the council have anything? Steve, start with you.
I don't, I just know we're gonna talk about sustain a little bit. That's the only comments I have, so I'll just wait.
Okay, Matt?
Nothing. The Trail Board, National Trail Day was a big success. Stuff out at Welch, so I hope people got to enjoy it. It was a beautiful day, and
we got that sign out.
Yeah.
Only Minnesota, or what, isn't that what it says, or something?
yes, yep. I think it's
Oh,
for another
cool.
10 days, or it was for 10 days total, only in
It's
Minnesota.
cool.
Bill?
Just a update, originally the Public Works was gonna meet on next Tuesday, but due to some, scheduling issues, we're gonna meet on Monday at 4:30 here in the council chambers.
Okay. Public Works next Monday at 4:30 in here. Derek, you got anything else?
No, I'm.
Derek?
that's it.
No, nothing
Mary
for me.
Jo?
Nope.
I would like to look into bringing up food trucks again. I would like a motion from the council to look into the chapter 114 of the city code that allows food trucks. I'd entertain a motion that we look into it on a trial basis, say from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and see how it works. I've talked to the food vendors, the Dudley, the Ryan, and all them, and there seems to be inconsistent with I guess they really don't have a problem with it, and Chris and Ryan from the brewery want it. Just on Saturdays, from about 2 to 8 or something like that.
Do they still want it? Because I notice now they have some type of partnership with Artisan Plaza.
For deliveries.
For
So-
deliveries.
Yeah.
Yeah. but
I
they
talked to
still
them
want a
last
food truck?
Friday or Thursday, whenever it was, and
want-
they still want a food
Okay.
truck.
Okay.
Just on Saturdays, from the afternoon to early evening.
Okay.
And if we could talk to the city attorney, maybe to come up with some type of a agreement that we'll do it on a trial basis this summer from Memorial Day to Labor Day and see how it works. If it doesn't work, we'll just drop it.
Do we have any idea of like how many we would allow or how that would,
I was
what it would look
I
like?
was thinking just one, but that's all they want at the
like
brewery.
first come, first serve? Because once
Yeah.
there's one in here, there might be others that want
But
to.
won't the market decide? I mean, any business that wants to bring a food truck, if we make it a trial basis and
Yeah.
they do,
Yeah, I'm just
But
wondering if
it'll-
we're going to set we don't want any more than three on any one day, or, I don't know. We could,
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
what does 114 say? I'm not familiar.
maybe Dave, you got that.
Peddlers and solicitors code standards, and we don't allow this kind of operation presently.
Got it here, but-
So we're going to have to amend, certainly for permanent status, and maybe even if we can't accommodate the temporary, we might have to propose an amendment to that code, which would specify that food trucks, including a definition, would be allowed in this case, Memorial Day to Labor Day, Saturdays only, X start, X finish. Maybe it's limited to one, maybe it's limited to a location. I mean, we'd have to work through some of those things in order to authorize it in our code. So it's the peddlers and solicitors.
should we maybe look at that at that work session we're going to have after our next meeting? I mean, or do we have to do it before then? I mean, I hate to take a really hasty action and then open a huge can of worms.
Assumedly, we're going to have to do an ordinance change, so we're going to have a formalized process with the council anyway.
Okay.
So if you have some general parameters now that you'd like us to look into, we can bring those back in the form of either a temporary authorization, if we can get that authorization, or a permanent ordinance change. So you would still have an opportunity to look at that.
Only
But I think the issues, again, are the scheduling, the time, the number, the location. The other ordinances we've looked at, you can be even more specific in terms of separation from competing similar businesses that offer food products. I mean, you can do a fair amount of things, not everything, but a fair amount of things in these ordinances. But again, it's something that it hasn't gone really beyond this conversation in the past. We know that Tilling and others have talked about it, but it's never gotten beyond this level of conversation.
What do we have for a fee schedule?
We would have to establish a fee for
And like would
that.
the Lions truck fall under this? They sell their stuff, various things.
They were going to operate other than a temporary
Well, food truck's pretty
authorized events.
temporary.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay,
Yep.
okay.
Well, is there any provisions that you'd want in there if we went ahead and applied for a temporary ordinance or something on that?
Could they get a permit per time, right? Is that the idea? Or would they get a permit for every Saturday? Or for this date? Or how would we work that?
No, they should get a permit for the whole season.
But are we going to limit it? I mean, we don't want 45 food trucks on one day, do we?
No.
I mean, this could look really weird. This could end up looking really weird, is what I'm saying.
The thing is where are you going to put them? That's,
Yeah.
if we don't have the room, we got in a parking lot or something like that, but, that's a big thing too. It's another thing to go along with it.
Right.
But would we allow them to park directly in front of the business, similar to the Strawberry?
I was thinking the Strawberry
Just
right now.
just in the time that we're talking, Saturday from 2 to 8, it really wouldn't take much away from customer parking, especially for the example of Tillian.
Yeah, but if you had 3 trucks or something, it could.
Yeah, two thing on the numbers. One is going to be the market limitations, particularly this year because we're well into
Right.
the season already. So if we're going to limit it to 1, that's going to control how many can be in Cannon Falls. I think the market informally will also regulate how many trucks will there really be. These are healthy investments in capital equipment for these trucks, and they are competitive, and they're going to want to make sure that if they establish a location in Cannon Falls once or all summer, that there's going to be a market opportunity for them to make the sales that they need. So there's some self-regulating, self-controlling realities of the food truck business, and I think particularly this year, because if we can't get the temporary authorization, the temporary license, and we go into an ordinance, we've got some time ahead of us anyway just to process the language and get it adopted. So if the direction here is you want to have a control on a trial basis this year to 1 truck, you can certainly establish that. Then the question is going to be, is it 1 truck, the same truck all season with 1 fee, 1 license, or could it be alternative trucks, which would then have a daily or a monthly, whatever we'd want to establish in the ordinance. So there's some unanswered questions here.
Right.
I think I would prefer that we allow it to be more of a variety, because then the businesses that step forward and want to try food trucks can see also what works, as you were saying, to try to establish themselves here. If we say just 1, it's a hot dog vendor and might work the first week, and then after that, nobody comes back.
Right. I agree. I think it should be, the number shouldn't be 1, certainly. I'd like to see, if it were my perfect world, there'd be a limit on how many could be there on any given day. But there may not be, but it would be a pretty, we could license up to, 5,000 food trucks, I guess, but only 4 of them can be here on a given day. No, really.
Sure.
How do
First
you
come, first
decide?
serve. And I don't know how we decide that, but whoever asks first,
Yeah.
maybe.
That one, what is it, Crumbles or
Yeah, Pine Island.
Pine Island or whatever? I don't, it's a good food truck.
Yeah. And do they normally,
Interesting.
do they normally show up like for the lunch hour or on weekends, or what do they normally do? I mean, they're not going to be here
I've been
Wednesday
just
at,
talking to the brewery, and they just wanted it there when.
One day.
From 2 or 3 when they open till
Right.
early evening, but
right. Of course, we
maybe
don't.
we better research this a little bit more before we do anything.
Well, I mean, there's some decisions to make.
Yeah.
And I think from Tillian's perspective, I'll give back a locational thing. It has nothing to do with them being the adjoining property owner. But the spot that we own on the west side of that building is often used for parking by their employees. But potentially that could be a location that wouldn't eliminate other public parking spaces normally, in the downtown area.
Well, it's going to
on a-
affect their own parking.
on a trial basis,
It's
yeah.
their own parking that
Yeah,
we're
it'd be their
affecting.
very own. So I think, if that were the location that were targeted this year, I'm not saying that's the only spot or the best spot, but it's a spot that probably doesn't conflict with our parking interests.
Well, if you're looking for like some direction from us as to where you want to go, I would say draft up a few proposals, have them all include what Tillian's wants, and have some other options around that. Because obviously they're the first ones to ask.
Right.
And they're the ones that I personally think should get the best consideration here, but others should be allowed as well. So maybe allow, X number of trucks for X number of hours, not to exceed, whatever. But do a few different ones that look really different, that will have a good variety of, oh, I like that, but let's change this, so help us out a little.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I'm not trying to run it all, but
Well, and is it just Saturdays only, or is it?
Exactly.
I mean,
they have
that's
different
their
ones.
request.
That's
Yeah.
their request.
But with the trail, my gosh, I'd love to see a food truck here on Sundays. When the weather's nice, park at the Riverside Park, park there. That's not a problem. There are other places they could park, not just beside Tillian.
Well, let's talk about it. We'll bring something to the
Bring
next
some-
council
yeah.
meeting and see.
Oh, and Nix has got a trailer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you may
Gives
wanna
us
do
some
that.
options.
Okay, we'll get some options for the next meeting. Okay, staff reports. Mike. Nicole?
Got a couple things. Summer reading started this week. People can register online. On our Facebook page, there's a link, and also on our homepage on our website, or come into the library and you can register. I also wanted to announce that we had gotten a grant for a collaborative project with the Canon Arts Board for a teen mural project. That's going to be happening next week. Kelly Bickman, who is actually a well-known artist and is from Cannon Falls, is coming home next week to do workshops with teenagers all week long to paint a mural. So it's going to be a teen-created,
Really?
teen-organized, but they're learning the artistic techniques, and it's going to go on one of the walls in the teen area of the library. And then next Friday, we will have an unveiling, because that'll be the last day. I cannot remember the time that I said that it was going to be. So you'll have to check our Facebook page and everything. But that's really exciting. And we've got lots of really cool programs coming up. So please check us out online and come and visit us. We like that too. So that's it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Chief?
After the last meeting, I contacted St. Croix Sensory, which is the company that provided the Nasal Ranger. I provided the pricing information they sent to city administrator, and roughly what we would need to do to get our unit back into operation. And then, here, be able to cover that more in detail as far as any plans he has.
Donnell? Dave?
Continue along the discussion that Jeff brought up on sustain. Thank you. You must have a nose for this. I handed out some information to you this evening, and I've highlighted in yellow findings from the odor monitoring summary and report that Trinity Consultants did for the city in 2014. For any one of you that would be interested in seeing the entire report from 2014, I'd be happy to provide it. Just let me know and I'll send you a copy. But this is the type of thing that the council was, I think, alluding to and talking to the public about last week, was to maybe embark on a similar study of the conditions and the odor circumstances that exist at Sustain. So we've got a report from 2014. The summary findings from that report are what I've copied on the handout that I distributed tonight. And obviously, there shouldn't be any surprise to anybody. I know Blaze has seen this report too, that there was clearly some odors detected during the monitoring period. We had 10 different locations in the industrial park and did basically 7 weeks of monitoring, all of which is covered in this report. But the summary findings there, which again is no surprise, is that yes, there was a detectable odor there. And in some cases, it was more noxious, stronger than others. In some cases, there was no odor detection at all. And I think we all know that those circumstances have continued even since 2014. But those are the findings from the report. And I say, if you want to look at the entire report, just let me know. Following the meeting 2 weeks ago, I communicated again with Blaze. I made a request to him for additional documentation, additional details about the studies that he talked about having Sustain had completed before. I think it would be helpful to have a chance to look at those reports, look at those findings, look at those recommendations, have the conversation with Blaze about those and see if we can learn a little bit more about what has been done in greater detail, what you're planning to do, what hasn't been done, why hasn't it been done, and just see if we can glean a little bit more information. Blaze was good enough today to respond in writing to me with paragraphs of summary, I think, from those reports. I haven't had a chance to really go in and look at specific detail on those, but he has been forthcoming with responding to my request, and I'm pretty confident that moving forward that Blaze and I will have more detailed conversations about the history and the future with regards to what they're doing to try to address this odor concern. As Jeff mentioned, he has received some cost estimates on the equipment and revising our equipment, maybe doing some additional training. Just assuming that maybe 3 people end up getting some additional training as odor monitors with probably some of the additional changes and improvements we're going to have to make on the equipment. It's probably a $2,500-ish number on the equipment, so it's not the end of the world. But to me, $2,500 is $2,500. And what I'd like to recommend to the council tonight, with your consent, I'd like to move forward with Blaze and have more specific conversations and look at the details and the documentation that he cited to you in the public a couple weeks ago, see what that says, and then maybe come back in 2 weeks and have a recommendation for you in terms of how to proceed. But I'm hesitant to go forward with another $14,000 study, even though in this case it would be about $2,500 of capital costs, but we're going to have a lot of time. If we're going to monitor each and every week that we monitor out there is staff time, which is a cost to us, and I hesitate to make that recommendation just yet. I would appreciate having a chance to get some more information before we do that. So that's an update from our conversation last week. I appreciate Blaze providing me with some information. We've dusted off some of the records. I'm not exactly sure in 2014 why we completed the study and never went forward with the development of an ordinance. We have an ordinance right now for nuisances, and odors are a nuisance. We could enforce under that ordinance today if we wish to. The goal of the odor study was that we would have developed a brand-new specific ordinance tailored exactly to odors based on the reporting and monitoring that we can do, with the equipment that we have. But for whatever reason, it never happened in 2014. So I would like to say a couple more weeks to dig a little bit further into the history of this and see if we can maybe put something together with a little bit more meat on the bones and bring it back to the council for your consideration.
Sounds good.
That sounds fair.
In addition to that, last week, Babe O'Gorman was here and brought up several items for consideration by the council. A couple of items in particular that Babe has brought up, we've talked about it at the Public Works Commission. I've heard from different members of the council over the last couple of months, conversations about the assertion that the city attorney needs to be here, has to be here, isn't here, how come that person isn't here? And Babe has raised that point. So I wanted to bring to the attention of the council and Babe that, again, as I've said before, the city attorney has stated very clearly that that's a directory provision in our code. It's not a mandated responsibility of the city to have the city attorney here at each and every meeting. And as Roger Knutson pointed out, if you would prefer that he or someone from his firm be here at every meeting, that's fine. Just make the request and they'll be here. But it's not a requirement established by the code. It is a directory, and the council has the authority to decide whether you do or you don't feel that you need a city attorney at each and every meeting of the city council. So hopefully that clarifies, at least from the city attorney's perspective, that provision. One of the other questions that's been discussed has been Section 3104 of the code relative to the Public Works Commission. Who's really on first? Who's in charge? Who's not in charge? And there does appear to be the potential of some confusion in 3104. So I've asked Roger again to look at that and comment back to the City Council. And you can see that he's clarified that by saying that while the Public Works Commission has been established, it doesn't state that the Public Works Director, now served by Mike Altoff, is necessarily the head of the Public Works Commission. So I think we've been operating based on past precedent with the Public Works Commission. that the two council representatives and the public at large who's appointed are really the decision makers on the commission, and to the degree that the Public Works Director, now Mike Altoff, serves as staff to the commission. That's how it's historically been, aided by the city administrator and others as we need. So I think from the city attorney's perspective, there shouldn't be ambiguity in that particular part of the code, that what we've been doing is acceptable, and I just wanted to bring that to your attention and also to Babel Gorman, because I know he's brought it up on several times in the past. So I wanted to report on those two tonight. Maybe those two are the low-hanging fruit, as I'd like to call them. Certainly, there's been a lot more questions that he's raised, a lot of other considerations that we'll need to be talking about and looking at going forward. But I at least wanted to get these two out here, because these two have been two that have really been at the forefront that we've heard a lot about in the last half a year or so.
Well, and also, just as I don't know if it's a corollary or what, the Public Works Commission, all these other committees we have, they're just advisory. Isn't that correct? I mean, They just bring things forth to us. They don't actually change policies themselves.
Correct.
Right, okay. I want to just make that clear for myself.
Do I get a chance to talk, Mr. Mayor?
Wait till public input.
Well, if we're on the subject, sir. It's got my name on it. You see it right here. You're talking about me like I'm not in the room. I'm right here. It's pretty simple. I don't have the charter with me, but it appears to me as that these words don't match. And when you talked about grandkids, I play Uno with my grandkids. And believe me, I'm not as good as they are. But I'm pretty sure that this doesn't all match. So, I don't know why it doesn't match, but it doesn't talk to any degree about the ordinance that says that the chairman of that commission must be elected at the first meeting.
Shall.
Okay?
Shall be elected.
Okay, so I'm just saying, and I don't see anything in here about a personnel committee. You and I have talked about this, Dave, or police commission, and so we have an attorney that's getting paid to do some housekeeping, and it's simple housekeeping, and he has provided you an answer that says it's okay that he's not doing his job. Seems a little odd to me.
Well, what do you really want to have happen here? I mean, truly, you ask, no, but you ask a lot of questions and bring what could be very valid points up, but what do you really?
You got him here and you want to hold him accountable. You want to hold Sustain accountable. Everybody does.
Yeah.
I'm trying to hold you accountable. That's all.
For what?
To the law.
What you mean law? This isn't, no, these are not laws.
Oh, certainly they are, ma'am. Yes, they are. You made them law. You, the city of Cannon Falls, made them law.
It's not
yes,
the
they are
same
law.
thing.
Ordinances are laws,
Simply
yes.
because something isn't expressly called for doesn't mean it's illegal to do.
Well, it's an ordinance. That's what we make ordinances for. And they are laws. And it is clear. Am I incorrect here?
Clarification that
Mr.
I will
Maroney.
the clarification that I will offer here, as I said in my opening comments, Babe, is that these are two very specific items, and you've raised questions about both more than once, not just to me, but to the council and others. This doesn't answer all of the questions and all of the assertions that you've made.
No.
Right. Nor was it intended to.
No.
They're very specific, these two.
Okay, anything else, Dave?
Planning Commission will not meet Monday night. And the final thing I'll raise is we did also talk with Personnel Committee in that we have the vast majority of the workers in City Hall will be gone on Friday, July 5th. We've talked with staff. We talked with the Personnel Commission about closing City Hall on July 5th. It will not be a paid holiday. People who are not working that day will need to use their vacation or their compensation time, comp time to be absent. But it looks like we'll be very, very short-staffed that day, so we've asked for approval by the City Council to close City Hall on July 5th.
Motion to, any discussion on that? Motion to close City Hall on July 5th?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mary Jill and second by Morris to close City Hall on July 5th. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
That's all I have.
That's got, okay.
So, I've been practicing for 2 days on all my information, talk to Blaze.
Yes, sir.
Well, I talked to Jeff about the Nasal Ranger. Sounds more like a comic book hero than a machine. But I don't think everything's gonna be tied to a machine according to what you can read in the laws. And I'm only gonna stipulate a couple things where it says, combination thereof in such quantity of such nature and duration and under such conditions as would be injurious to human health or welfare, to animal or plant life, or to property, or to interfere unreasonably with the enjoyment of life or property. We're not going to measure that with a machine. That's going to have to be public input or public designation. And I guess you and Dave are going to talk more, but I think everybody wants to hold your feet to the fire more than they have. It seems like it peaks and then everything gets quieted down. But for those of us that didn't have formal college education, we do things on our own. And I like to work on engines, and I use the old adage, rev it till it rattles, and then slow down. So I'm thinking, and I'm not, is accusatory a word? I don't want to accuse anybody of doing anything, but sometimes maybe we push our engines too far, maybe we push our employees too far, and we're okay with that until we start getting a little feedback. And I'm not sure if that's the issue here, but I think that adage could be used for a lot of different things. We just want happy neighbors. The city council voted for you to begin operations up there, but in talking to certain staff members, the first complainant was one of the city councilmen after you were up and running. So I guess we dug our own hole. We're going to have to start to work together to get back out of it. There.
Thank you.
I think too, Steve, that sometimes it feels, at least to me, like the goals are kind of a moving target. We're not always talking about the same things, we're talking about numbers out here, numbers out here. And as you said, Steve, it's not, a lot of this stuff isn't something that you can measure with any, it's going to be feelings, and it's going to be people who feel like they're being heard and feel like that things are being answered for them. But, I'm not trying to be more tough on you than anyone else, but you've got those broad shoulders, so we're going to hold you accountable.
Anybody else? Okay, that brings us to public input. Citizens may speak to the issues not on the agenda. Before speaking, please give your name and address for the record, and kindly limit your comments to 3 minutes. Public comments must be respectful, pertinent to city business, and adhere to the applicable data privacy rules. The city council will not take action on any issue raised by the public, but may choose to schedule consideration of the item on a future agenda.
Well, believe it or not, I didn't have a lot to say, but this kind of bothers me that you're talking about ordinances not being the law, but we want to get a food truck, and we got to make a provision in our ordinances, our laws. Chief of Police said last meeting there was no ordinance about sustain. There are a couple, and they're laws, and it's that simple. And So I'm trying to make you accountable to the laws that you folks enforce on the rest of us. Why don't you have to follow them?
Good evening, Council and community. Kyle Paulson from the Chamber of Commerce. We do have a Fun Fest coming up on June 13th, which is next Thursday evening. Right now, we have Troy Aaron Johnson as the entertainment. We have over 40 vendors, and I know I have at least 8 more registration forms out. So we could possibly hit 50 in the month of June.
Wow.
Which will just be huge. So that's wonderful. Please be sure to come down. The hours are 5 to 8, and we're going to have a good time. Another fun event is the Chamber's largest fundraiser of the year. It is our golf tournament and fundraiser on Thursday, June 27th. And so we are looking for volunteers to help us run it. We are looking for even more teams. We have 19 teams signed up right now and a couple of individuals. You can sign up as an individual. And so just give the chamber a call and we can help you get all lined up with both of those. Also, the summer coupon booklets are out. We did order 4,000 this year. And so hopefully those coupons keep our businesses rolling. And I've already heard that they're being used. So that's a great thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Anybody else, public? Blaze?
Sir, I don't have much to say. I'm Blaze Holden with Sustained Natural Fertilizer. I just found out about this yesterday and so didn't prepare anything or anything like that, but I did want to address a couple things in this piece of paper. We were certainly aware of this report done in 2014, and we had requested it several times. At that time, we had expected to receive a copy of it and had been involved with the initial portion of that process, but were unable to get this report. We asked for it several times and just received it last fall after asking again. So it's something that's helpful for us to have in our possession. We wished we had had it in 2014, but that was not the case. I'd also like to mention that, I certainly understand the points that you can't measure people's happiness or well-being and that sort of thing. The challenge for us is that, we need some way to quantify what the odor levels are and to know where they're coming from.
Right.
And so, it is difficult to do that when it's just based on public input. And so I don't know what the best solution is to that. We're working hard to monitor ourselves. I'm certainly happy to work with Dave and anyone else, to move forward. But, we do want some way to measure or to know where, that the complaints are associated with our operation. Not saying that they're not, but, we do, just in the past week, we received a complaint when the plant was not operating and it was, 2.5 miles away. And so, there's a lot of visibility to this issue right now. And I think it's easier for, townspeople to attribute an odor they may smell to us because they've heard about it, they read about it in the paper and that sort of thing. Yeah. I fully admit that there has been odor emissions from our facility, so I'm not trying to stand up here and say that we're not the cause of the odors. Mm-hmm. But even this report here says, roughly half of the detected odors were this burnt turkey manure smell. So that means the other half were something else, and so obviously we don't want to be half of the odors, we don't want to be any of the odors, but we do want a fair process for determining, what the levels are and, what the impact range is. So, and then the other thing I wanted to mention was that we also have hired Sensory Services or St. Croix Sensory as the odor consultant. They were the ones that had done the training. They're the ones that invented the nasal ranger, and they're nationally recognized experts on odors. And so just wanted to bring that to the council's attention that we've hired the same company. And, you know, I don't anticipate there being any conflicts with that, but everybody that we talk to, that's who they referred us to, and it just made sense that we've got one of the best here in the state, that's who we should be dealing with. So just wanted to make you guys aware that that's what we've done. Thank you.
Very good, thanks, Blaze.
Ken Carpenter, 1005 Park Street West. I know this last winter was a very long one. And I know Mike's crew did a very commendable job trying to keep up with everything and to repair roads this spring. But I think the city council needs to look at what they want to do with Park Street south of 19, because that area, even though it's been patched this spring, a lot of those patches are falling off. We're getting a lot more potholes, as Steve should know. You've driven it enough times.
Chevrolet is just smooth, you can't even tell.
But I think we may have to look at getting it rebuilt the next year. But
that was part of the west side.
It was originally part of the west side, and it got
on.
broken off because of the cost of the bonding issue.
Yeah.
According to Greg, when I was on the city council, our city engineer was saying that the remainder portion of this, the Park Street portion, is about $1 million job. And then we had 2 other areas here in town which were both $1 million jobs. And that would complete the planned building of streets. So, thank you.
That is part of the next project, isn't it? Park Street?
Not right now. The next phases plan would be north side, everything north of the river, and a couple phases up there, some mill and overlay and some full reconstruct. But that's one thing I've talked to Greg Anderson about. We were talking about bringing some discussion in the July commission meeting, kind of what our focus wants to be for 2020. You know, do we want to pursue a north side project, or do we want to piecemeal some projects around town? You know, one of them being those 4 blocks and a few others we've identified, some stuff up on Limestone Road, a block of Cedar Street, you know, things like that, to try to button up a few things around town and then discuss a little bit more maintenance, because that's one thing we are running into now is our budgeted money this year for street improvements, patching and all that. It's going to be gone really soon, you know, and we feel we've made a big dent in it, but not what we'd like to do, you know, with the type of winter we've had. But it was an excessive winter, but some of our stuff's just getting to that age. You know, I'm nervous about like Ridgecrest Drive. You know, we've got a lot going on there that eventually the substructure is going to get involved too. So it's no longer going to be a mill and overlay. And that is what we're running into over on those 4 blocks of Park Street, that we're not looking at just taking off 1.5 inches and putting it back on. You're looking at taking all the asphalt off, working on a Class 5 substructure on it, and then going back with a new road. And then, as long as you've gone that far, you know, evaluating any water and sewer needs at that time too. You know, it'd be silly not to, if you're going to rip the road up that far. As if we do have any issues, we want to investigate, take care of those too. So they do get to be a little bit more I would be surprised if it's $1 million project for 4 blocks, but you know, we'll see what we come up with for that. But that's kind of the discussion, and it kind of fits in with, I think, our budget workshop type discussions too, of going into the next year or two. You know, what do we want to focus on in 2020? I mean, you've got options. You can do nothing, you know, and just tell me to keep going in what we're doing. We can look on maintenance type projects, or some piecemeal ones, or full reconstruct. Unfortunately, the taxpayers won't like us if we do all of that, you know, all over the place.
Well, I think if you did right in front of my house, I think everything else can be.
I'll hit in front of your and Ken's driveways. Yeah. So that's that's kind of discussions to come, but some good ones we're going to have this summer on what next year and the following ones should look like.
Okay, anybody else public input? Final call, public input. Okay, we'll close the public input portion of the meeting. I just want to recap a few things. Monday, 4:30 is Public Works and no Planning Commission on Monday night.
Correct.
One thing I do want to mention, but is on June 27th, Thursday, the same day as a golf meet, by the way, but at 5 o'clock of that night here at the city, that's the MnDOT is going to be here with a presentation on the Highway 52 project. There's been a meeting in Zumbrota, there's been a meeting at Erland Church, and now they're going to meet in Cannon Falls. That's on June 27th at 5 to 7 here at City Hall. So if you see what the project entails and what MnDOT's up to, that would be the time to do it. So I wanted to bring that up tonight too. So Fun Fest on June 13th. Does anybody else got anything else? Now I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bill, a second by Morris to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.